This video has been made with the purpose of education and awareness of real crimes, and there is no disrespect intended to anyone. This is to help promote truth and justice for anyone who has been a victim of crime. What I'm about to report is what I have researched online, and I will welcome any corrections should they be required. Hello there, little berry true crime fans. Nice to see you again. I had a poll on Twitter that basically asked, what did you want? Did you want another reaction to a JCS video, or did you want straight reporting or not bothered? One person said reaction, 3 people said normal report, 1 person said they weren't bothered. So I think with the not bothered, I'm going to lump in with the majority, which is straight case report. Now, yes, I agree. I've done 3 reactions recently, but that is not going to take over the channel. Please believe me when I say it's not. I will actually keep those to a minimum. Today, you are getting a report, but not of 1 case, but 2. These 2 particular cases raise questions in my mind about either guilt in terms of who was involved, and the other one is culpability. The second one in particular, I'm still conflicted on. I would love it, if you could please comment below, get a discussion going, let's hash this out, let's get opinions, let's get talking about this. It is really important to. I also love having more subscribers because that means my audience is growing, and then I can start posting things. As soon as I get 500, I can put posts on my channel. When I get to 1,000, I can turn it into a business and actually be able to support myself doing this. I really would appreciate your help. If you could please share this on Facebook, share it on Twitter, give it a like or a dislike, it doesn't matter. And tell your friends, tell your family. The more people know about it, it doesn't matter how good the channel is. If people don't know about it, they're not going to come across it, are they? So I really would appreciate it if you could do that. That would be great. And it'd be good for you because you get to see me. Anywho, we will now jump into the first case. For this first case, we are going into the 19th century in Sweden to the Ekwall family, and I want to give a disclaimer. I am very sorry if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name. I do apologize. If I'm wrong, by all means correct me. Ludvig Ekwall married a woman called Hedvig, and they had 6 children together, the eldest of which was called Sofia Maria. They were wealthy, they lived in a manor. Their 6 kids, they didn't want for anything. They lived in a place called Attarp, I believe it's pronounced, in Småland, south of the city of Linköping in Scotland. I apologise if I am mispronouncing. I should have looked up pronunciations before I did the video. Sofia, being the eldest, she had a lot of responsibility on her, but the family was well off enough to have maids and servants. They would often make the food, but sometimes Hedvig would as well, and Sofia Maria would often help out too. And on the 28th of May, so actually not too far from the anniversary now, in 1845, Ludvig inexplicably fell ill. Appeared to be like a 24-hour thing, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, fever. He was very twitchy, but the next day, he seemed to be okay. Everything seemed to be fine. So it just carried on as normal. Just over a week later, he fell ill again with exactly the same symptoms, this time a lot more intense. He was having what appeared to be seizures. He was bedbound. There was nothing he could do for himself. At the same time, one of their maids called Maja Fosberg, she actually became ill with exactly the same symptoms. So it was thought maybe this is some kind of food poisoning. Maybe this is, because it's affecting the 2 of them. Is it a virus? It wasn't quite clear. And one of the children in the family, one of the little girls, I couldn't find her name, I'm afraid, she also became quite ill. As I said, these symptoms didn't seem to be specific. They were very general: vomiting, diarrhea, headache, nausea. But these twitches and these convulsions and the fact that they became ill so quickly was very, very suspicious. Maja in particular, the day that she fell ill, she went down, she plummeted really, really quickly. Literally hours after her symptoms began, she passed away. A family doctor was called out. He examined Maja's body. He also looked at the little girl, and also he looked at Ludvig. This didn't seem to be food poisoning or a virus. He was convinced that this was a case of arsenic poisoning. Using the well-known antidotes of the time, he was able to treat Ludvig and also the little girl. She made a full and complete recovery. Ludvig apparently seemed to get better. But that night, after having a meal of oat soup, he became ill again. And just like with Maja, he went downhill quickly. His health deteriorated within hours. That night, he passed away. Hedvig, who was Ludvig's widow now and the mother to 6 children, she was very quick to point the finger. She pointed the finger at their other maid, whose name was Hedda Thorman. Hedvig also made a very shocking allegation about Hedda. She said that Hedda had secretly given birth to a child that she had murdered as soon as she gave birth to them and buried the child. Hedvig further alleged that the deceased Maja was aware of this, had helped Hedda bury the child, and Hedda had poisoned Maja to silence her, basically. When Hedda was questioned by the police, it just didn't seem right that she was guilty of the murder of Ludvig. The allegations of her being guilty of murdering a child, though, did mean that she was taken into custody on that charge. And along with her, they charged Wilhelm, who was the 18-year-old son of Hedvig and Ludvig. It was speculated that Wilhelm was actually the father of the child and had participated in the murder and burial. Tests on the oat soup consumed the night that Ludvig passed away were conducted. Tests on the oat soup revealed that this indeed was the agent that delivered the fatal doses of arsenic to the family. This soup had actually been made by Hedvig, the mother, not by the maids. The soup had not only been consumed on the night that Ludvig passed away, it had been consumed earlier on. Maja had actually eaten the leftovers from the pot in which the oat soup was prepared, and the little girl, she actually had some from her father's plate. This led the police to believe that it was Ludvig who was the real target of this murder, and that Maja's poisoning and also of the daughter's poisoning were accidental. They weren't intended. After questioning the family, having had a look at their accounts and what they did generally, it was determined that Sofia Maria, the eldest daughter, she had a silk dress that had a stain on it. She couldn't get it out, and one of the ways that they used to get stains out of clothing in those days was to use arsenic. She had ordered some from a local apothecary. Potentially, Sofia Maria, the eldest daughter, was the one who administered the arsenic. Further reviews into the general lives of the Ekwall family found that Ludvig, he wasn't a loving, doting father. He was a tyrant. He was an authoritarian. He wasn't close with his children, and he was also an alcoholic. Sofia had fallen in love. She wanted to marry, but she needed her father's blessing. But Ludvig refused to allow her to marry the man she wanted. This was motive enough, and also the evidence of her being the one to procure the arsenic, to arrest Sofia for the murder of her father. At first, Sofia was quite quiet, and then she started to deny everything. However, after much more questioning, she started talking. She confessed, essentially, to the poisoning, but said she hadn't acted alone. Her own mother, Hedvig, was also involved. Sofia confessed to having poisoned a sandwich for Maja, and that her mother had overseen this, but had not physically carried out the administering of the poisoning. However, Maja had been poisoned using the soup, not the sandwich. Because of Sofia's allegations that her own mother was an accomplice, essentially, Hedvig was taken into questioning. She was questioned and interrogated. So many different things were put to her, and actually the police were able to find many counter-arguments to Hedvig because she categorically denied having any knowledge, any involvement, anything to do with the deaths of Maja and her husband, and of the poisoning of one of her daughters. Hedvig did not budge, but the police were convinced that either she knew more she was letting on, or she actually was involved, but there was no evidence. And because she was denying everything, they had to release her. Another reason she was released is because she had 5 more children she needed to take care of. So she went home, carried on taking care of the children, and Sofia was kept in custody. After this, Sofia changed her story. She now directly accused her mother of being equally as culpable as she was. Hedvig apparently had no love for her husband, and she was upset with him as well about not only how his alcoholism and his tyrannical approach to his family was bringing everybody down, but he was standing in the way of his eldest daughter's happiness. Hedvig was once again brought in for questioning. She not only denied everything, but she was outraged that her own daughter could accuse her of such a thing when she had nothing to do with it. Sofia did not change her story again. This is exactly what she said happened, and she continued to say that she and her mother acted together, that this was a joint effort. And there were so many inconsistencies in Hedvig's questioning, the answer she was giving. It seemed kind of logical in a way that she was involved, because she was quite eager to point the finger at somebody, deflecting blame, accusing them of doing something else, as if to take the spotlight away from the murder of her husband and the maid. She was subject to intense interrogation and cross-examination. She was actually directly accused in court, but she denied everything and there was no evidence, so she was never convicted. The head of the maid did initially confess to the murder of the baby, but she later retracted it. The police suspected that Sofia had actually been the one to kill the child, not Hedda, and that Hedvig probably knew about it. Sofia was found guilty and she was sentenced to death. She immediately appealed to the King of Sweden, not so much about her conviction, but about her sentence. She appealed for mercy, basically, to say, she didn't really admit it, so like no contest, but have some mercy on me, don't put me to death. And it worked. Her sentence was commuted to life in prison, although she had to spend the first 28 days of her sentence purely on bread and water. Normally, if you're sentenced to death and then your sentence is commuted to life in prison, you don't have the chance of parole. But in this case, Sofia, after serving around 30 years in prison, she was released. She lived for another 21 years. Sofia was actually born on the 1st of January in 1826, and she passed away in 1897 on her birthday, so she passed away at the age of 71. Her mother lived another only 4 years. She was never convicted of anything. She may have been involved, she may not have. She may have decided to turn against her daughter. She certainly didn't openly accuse her daughter, but she didn't defend her either. Was Hedvig involved in this? I don't think we'll ever know. Picture this: a wealthy couple in a suburban area in Belfast, Maine, USA. One morning, the mother gets up. She gives her 9-year-old daughter her breakfast, does her hair, sends her on her way to play with her dolls. The mother then retrieves a revolver, which is already loaded. She goes into where her husband is asleep in bed. She walks up to him, points the gun at his head, and fires twice, killing him. She then takes hold of her daughter, goes next door, calls the police, puts her hands up, and says that she murdered her husband. She pleads guilty. She's convicted. But get this, she serves no jail time. Why? When she blatantly walked up to her sleeping husband and shot him twice. This was no accident. He was in a defenseless position. We need to go back a bit to explain how this occurred. Normally, whenever I talk about a victim, a murder victim, I will talk about what they were like in life. And more often than not, we highlight their positive points. Sometimes there may be some negative points, but most of the time we try and make it, make people understand that these people were genuine people. They were three-dimensional. They had lives, they had personalities, they had purpose. But rarely have I come across a victim who does not deserve a single positive word. This man was just about everything bad. James Cummings. He and his wife Amber were very young when they met and married, sort of barely in their 20s. James's father had passed away, and James's father was a millionaire. So James inherited all this money. They had a daughter, her name was Clara. James and Amber appeared to be very deeply in love when they first met and married. But like a lot of relationships that go through turmoil, James began to show his true colours. Why on earth would someone fall in love with and marry someone who's truly despicable? The reason being is because the person they portray themselves to be in the early stage of their relationship and the marriage is not someone truly despicable. They play a character. James began to isolate Amber from her family. He forbade her from seeing not only her family, but his own family. He pretty much cut ties with his own family after his dad died. He wanted all the wealth to himself. He often forbade her from leaving the house. They moved a number of times. They moved further and further away from Amber's family. She was actually from Northern California, but they moved to Belfast, Maine. And as well as this coercive control, Amber was subjected to beatings and rape on a regular basis at the hands of her husband. James was also no doting father. He was abusive to his daughter. He would reprimand her for the tiniest things, and Amber would literally jump in between them to take the beating herself, or to at least give her daughter time to run away. But it didn't always work. Amber was also made by her husband to go online to chat rooms and get women for him. So he was openly being disrespectful and unfaithful to his wife, and he was lording it over her. If that wasn't enough, James Cummings was a white supremacist. When President Obama was elected, he was furious. He said, "Why would America vote in a man of colour," as he put it? How could he run this country? James was also obsessed with Hitler. He admired and he revered Hitler. He spent a great deal of his inheritance buying Hitler memorabilia and even original items that Hitler himself owned. He had a garage full of Hitler paraphernalia. He was a Nazi. He had swastikas all over the garage. His wife was never allowed in there. That was his man cave. That was his place. And the final straw. Amber found that her husband had an interest in underage girls. He openly asked her for her opinion on them. If he wasn't already, Amber was scared beyond belief that he would do this. He would do despicable things to their daughter, Clara. Apparently she did try and leave a number of times, and it's okay for people on the outside to say, "Why didn't you leave?" But unless you're in that position where you are financially dependent on someone, when you have nobody around that will help you because they've made your family hate you or not want to be around you, they are controlling you, with your mind. She physically was not allowed to leave the house, the locks on the doors and everything. She was terrified. And at this point in their marriage, they were actually sleeping in separate bedrooms. And each one of them, they both had a loaded gun under their pillows. I don't know whether he was genuinely frightened of her or he was frightened of anybody, intruders, but I believe she kept a loaded gun because she was scared of him. James also said that at the point of Obama's inauguration, he was going to kill him. Amber didn't think he'd go through with it. She thought it was just, I'm going to kill him. One of those things we say, or a fantasy we have. Amber said she felt, quote, an escalating sense of doom. The only way out was to just end it. On the morning of the 9th of December 2008, she gave her daughter breakfast. Amber went to her room and retrieved her loaded gun, which was a Colt .45 caliber revolver. And she held it under her chin. She was fully prepared to take her own life, but then something stopped her. Her daughter. Not directly. She didn't do this in front of her daughter. She thought, I cannot leave my daughter with him. He might end up sexually abusing her. She took the gun away from her face, stood up. She walked into her husband's bedroom where he was asleep. He didn't stir. He didn't notice her. She walked up to him about a foot or two away, pointed the gun at his head, and shot twice. She dropped the gun, left the house with her daughter, went to the neighbor's house, called the police. She openly admitted what she did. She made no attempt whatsoever to hide or make any kind of excuse for her behavior. She said, this is what I was concerned about. And when the police raided the house, they did indeed find child pornography on James Cummings' computer, but that was not all. James didn't just say that he wanted to kill Obama in jest. He wanted to make good his plan. As well as his Nazi paraphernalia, the police found ingredients and instructions on how to make a dirty bomb. He planned to detonate it at Obama's inauguration with his wife and his child with him. So he was planning to take out himself and his wife and his child, as well as the president, many other important people, and many innocent Americans. Amber didn't know this at the time that she shot her husband. But given what the police found, this man was a would-be murderer as well as a pedophile, a rapist, a wife-beater, white supremacist. He was despicable, absolutely despicable. Amber pleaded guilty, but it was put forward by her defense team that she didn't really feel like she had any other choice. She couldn't get out of this marriage. She couldn't get out of the house even. She was scared that her daughter was going to be molested, and given what the police found at the house, they believed her. And of course, all of the Nazi paraphernalia, and that he was serious about killing the new president and killing many innocent people, himself and his family. She said either her and her daughter died, as well as him, or just him. So to her, it was going to be just him. Amber received great support from the public. There were people who said she was an American hero. The public wanted her to go free. They didn't want her to go to jail for what they believed to be a heroic act. She saved the president. She saved many innocent lives. They believe she saved the entire United States even. So to the public, she was a hero. But when she killed her husband, the only thing on her mind was her and her daughter. Was that enough to have her set free? Yes, Amber had murdered her husband when he was asleep. You cannot be in a more vulnerable and defenseless position than when you're unconscious. But at the same time, did she have any choice? So she was seen more of a victim than a murderer, more of a victim than her husband was a murder victim. Her defense team were successful. They made sure she didn't go to jail. The judge agreed. But that isn't to say she didn't plead guilty, because she did. She was given an 8-year sentence, but it was suspended, so she walked free. The judge said he was shocked at the sadistic and unimaginable abuse to which she and her daughter were subjected. There were no redeeming qualities about him. But someone who has no redeeming qualities, like James, does that mean that you have the right to go up to them while they sleep and shoot them? What could she have done? Amber then made a statement which I'll read. The terrible thing is, I was forced to take the life of someone that I love very much, to save my daughter that I love very much. It's something that I will have to live with for the rest of my life, and it won't be easy. I'll always wonder. I'll always be looking over my shoulder, always wondering if he can come back from the dead. Completely understand that, totally, because even though someone is physically dead, they're still here. It's not easy to switch that off. It may in time turn itself off, but it will take a while. James Cummings was a ticking time bomb, would-be terrorist, paedophile, white supremacist. He was a bully, he was a wife beater, he was a rapist. Everything bad. Nothing good to say about him. She saved lives doing what she did, but that was not the reason she did what she did. She did it to save her daughter. James Cummings was posthumously diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Okay, that's understandable, but that doesn't excuse what he did. They did actually theorize, though, that there was something of a folie à deux going on, which means madness of two. It's seen more in people who are in cohorts together, such as sometimes even in twins, or criminal partners. In this case, what they felt happened was that Amber had somehow absorbed some of James's psychosis. Amber asked the public to forgive her husband because he was suffering from a mental illness. The sentence that she received was extremely lenient. She said if it happened in any other state, she didn't think that she would get the same treatment. Technically speaking, she did save a lot of lives by taking one. But did she have the right to take the law into her own hands? Do you have the right to shoot somebody as they sleep? You're not in immediate danger right there and then. Did she have any other choice? I really don't know. But at the same time, I've got nothing good to say about James Cummings. I don't condone murder, but in a way, I'm glad he's dead. She's suffering from PTSD, and she even says that he's still here. She's still going to be looking over her shoulder. I really would like to invite any discussion on this. And where Amber and her daughter Clara are, I really hope they are happy and healthy, and that James is no longer in here. It has been 12 years, so she's been without him for as long as they were married. I really wish them all the best, especially little Clara. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name as Clara a few times. I really am sorry. But this is all I have for this video. If you prefer me to do 2 in one video, 3 in one video, or just 1 per video, let me know. Tweet me, Facebook me, tell people. Don't just go up to people in the street, though, and tell them. That's a bit weird. But anyway, thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you later, little berries. Bye-bye.